While my husband slides a manila envelope with divorce papers across our kitchen island on the morning of my 35th birthday, I'm mentally reviewing the documents that will transfer ownership of his tech company to me, the same company I helped build while he was busy having an affair with his assistant. As he pours himself a celebratory whiskey at 10 a.m., I'm calculating exactly how long it will take his smug smile to disappear when he discovers that his helpless homebody wife has been 3 steps ahead of him for months. He thinks I'll break, down crying when he tells me he's leaving. Instead, I'll be breaking the news that the business evaluation meeting he's scheduled for next week will have a very different outcome than he expects. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My hands remain steady as I accept the envelope, a practiced smile masking the calculations running through my mind. Through our kitchen window, I can see the delivery truck dropping off the designer watch I ordered for David's birthday next month. A watch he'll never receive, much like the love and loyalty he promised me 10 years ago at our wedding. The irony isn't lost on me that the same hands that once placed a ring on my finger are now pushing divorce papers toward me, wrapped in false sympathy and impatience. Emma, David says, checking his Rolex, the one I gave him on our 5th anniversary. I think it's best if we handle this quickly and quietly. The papers are straightforward. I take a slow sip of my coffee, the ceramic mug hiding my smile. If only he knew how many nights I've spent in our home office after he'd claimed to be working late, studying business documents, legal precedents, and the operating agreement he thought I'd never understand. On my birthday, David? Really? I keep my voice soft, vulnerable, exactly what he expects. He has the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, running his hand through his expensively cut hair. I didn't plan it this way, but now that Martin has prepared everything, there's no reason to drag this out. You'll be provided for, of course. Martin, his lawyer and golf buddy, the same man who drafted our company's operating agreement 5 years ago, the one with the loophole David never noticed, the one that gives a co-founder majority control if the other founder engages in provable ethics violations against the company. I nod demurely, playing the role he's always cast me in. The former marketing executive who gave up her career to support his dreams, the wife who doesn't understand the complexities of business, the woman who focuses on making their craftsmen. Home in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood look perfect for his business dinners. Could I at least have today to process this? I ask, eyes downcast. Maybe we could talk about it tomorrow? David checks his phone. Probably a message from Rebecca, his 28-year-old assistant whose perfume I first noticed on his shirts 4 months ago. The same Rebecca whose business trips with David coincided perfectly with the charges for 2 at intimate restaurants and boutique hotels that appeared on our joint credit card. Fine. One day, Emma. But I have a meeting with investors tomorrow morning, so we'll need to handle this in the evening. He grabs his keys from the counter. I'll stay at the Chambers Hotel tonight. Don't try to call me. I need space. If on cue, his phone buzzes again. He glances at it and I catch the slight smile before he schools his features back into solemn regret. Space. Of course, I murmur. After he leaves, the house falls silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in our entryway, a wedding gift from my parents. I wait exactly 5 minutes before pulling out my own phone and texting Jessica, my best friend from college and now my attorney. He delivered the papers, exactly as we predicted, moving to phase 2. Jessica's response is immediate. Documents ready, meeting with Tarek confirmed for 2 p.m. Tarek. Our company's CFO who came to me 3 months ago, concerned about financial discrepancies he'd discovered, expenses David had been charging to the company that had nothing to do with business, hotel rooms, jewelry, weekend getaways, all coinciding with Rebecca's hiring. I move to our home office, the one David rarely enters, and unlock the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside is a leather portfolio containing everything I need: financial records, text message screenshots, email printouts, hotel receipts, a meticulous record of David's betrayal, both personal and professional. What David never realized during our 10 years of marriage was that before I met him, I'd earned my MBA with a concentration in business law. He'd been so charmed by my marketing expertise when we met at a tech conference that he never bothered to learn about my full qualifications. When I suggested stepping back from my career to help build his startup from home, he saw it as me becoming the supportive wife. He never understood I was actually positioning myself at the heart of his company's operations. I spread the documents across the desk, reviewing the narrative they create. David, the CEO of Nexus Solutions, systemically misusing company funds to finance his affair, creating fake business meetings to cover his absences, and most damaging of all, sharing proprietary information with competitors through his careless communications with Rebecca, whose previous employer just happened to be our biggest rival. My phone rings, my mother calling to wish me happy birthday. "Emma, darling, 35 and more beautiful than ever. How's the birthday going?" I hesitate, my carefully maintained composure threatening to crack at the sound of her voice. My parents adore David, never seeing beyond his charismatic entrepreneur persona. "It's eventful, Mom. Listen, I can't talk right now, but could you and Dad come for dinner this weekend? There are some changes happening that I'll need to explain in person." "Changes? Is everything all right with the business? With David?" "The business is about to undergo some significant restructuring," I say carefully. "I'll explain everything Sunday. Love you, Mom." After hanging up, I check the time, 11:30 a.m. My meeting with Tarek and our company's head of legal is in 2.5 hours. I head upstairs to our bedroom, opening the closet to select my armor for the day. I bypass the feminine, approachable outfits David prefers me in and pull out a tailored charcoal suit I purchased last month, one David has never seen. As I dress, I catch my reflection in the full-length mirror. Gone is the soft, accommodating wife David thinks he's married to. In her place stands a woman he never truly knew, or bothered to know. My phone buzzes with a text from Jessica. Tarek forwarded new emails from this morning. D moving up investor announcement to tomorrow. Wants to claim sole ownership and direction. So that's his play. Divorce me today, announce his bold new direction to investors tomorrow, likely with Rebecca at his side as the new partnerships director, the position he'd promised to create for me once our children started school. Children that never came, despite years of trying, while he apparently had no trouble creating a different kind of partnership. I text back, "Perfect timing. See you at 2. At precisely 1:45 p.m., I pull into the small, discreet law office that Jessica maintains separate from her main practice. In the parking lot, I recognize Tarek's Tesla and Lisa's practical Subaru. Lisa, our head of legal compliance, who had quietly approached me 6 weeks ago with concerns about new contracts David was pushing through without proper review. "Hey, warrior," Jessica greets me with a tight hug when I enter. Her office is warmly lit, bookshelves lined with legal texts that remind me of our late-night study sessions in law school before I switched to my MBA program. Happy birthday, by the way, though I imagine it doesn't feel very happy right now. "It will," I say, placing my portfolio on her conference table. "When I'm done, it'll be the birthday I gave myself back my future." Tarek stands when I enter, his usually calm demeanor tense with contained anger. "Emma, I've found more. Transactions that can't be explained as anything but deliberate misappropriation of company resources." Lisa nods in agreement. "And I've reviewed the operating agreement. For the 5th time. The ethics violation clause is clear, and with the documentation we have, there's no question that David has violated it repeatedly. For the next hour, we refine our strategy. The operating agreement that David had hurriedly signed 5 years ago, eager to get the business formalities out of the way, included a clause designed to protect the company if either founder engaged in ethical violations. As equal co-founders, we each owned 50% of Nexus Solutions, but the clause stipulated that proven ethics violations would trigger a reallocation of controlling interest to the innocent party. David never worried about this clause. In his mind, I was just the supportive wife whose name was on the paperwork because we were married. He didn't realize that made me exactly equal to him in the eyes of the company, and that his actions had just handed me everything. "We should expect him to fight this," Jessica warns, reviewing our documentation. "Men like David don't surrender power easily." "He'll fight," I agree, "but we have something he doesn't." "What's that?" Tarek asks. "We have the truth," I say, "and we have his own arrogance working against him. He doesn't think I understand what he's doing." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He certainly doesn't think I'm capable of stopping him. By 4 p.m., all the necessary paperwork is prepared. Ethics violation charges documented. Share transfer agreements drawn up. Corporate governance updates ready for filing. Everything perfectly. Legal, perfectly binding, and perfectly devastating to David's plans. "What about Rebecca?" Lisa asks as we conclude our meeting. "She's been complicit in this." I consider this question carefully. Rebecca is young, ambitious, and clearly morally flexible, but ultimately, she's not my target. Her employment will be terminated, effective immediately, I decide. With standard severance, but a very clear NDA. My issue isn't with her. She didn't make vows to me. David did. As I drive home, the weight of what I'm about to do settles, firmly on my shoulders. This isn't just about revenge, though the thought of David's face when he realizes what's happened does bring a certain satisfaction. This is about justice, for me, for the company we built, and for all the employees who depend on Nexus Solutions for their livelihoods. At home, I change into something more comfortable but still polished, a cashmere sweater and well-cut jeans. Then I pour myself a glass of the expensive Cabernet David bought for special occasions and settle in to read through the divorce papers he left. They're exactly as insulting as I expected. Despite my role as co-founder, despite the countless hours I've put into building our company from our home office, despite my name on every founding document, he's offering me the house and a modest monthly allowance, as if I were a housekeeper being pensioned off after years of service. No mention of my stake in the company. No acknowledgement of my contributions. Just a clean, clinical excision of me from the life and business we built together. My phone buzzes with a text from David. "Have you reviewed the papers? Martin needs to know when you'll sign." I don't respond immediately, letting him sit with the uncertainty. Instead, I call Jessica. "He's getting impatient," I tell her. "Texting about when I'll sign the papers." "Perfect," Jessica replies. "Let him think you're emotional and indecisive. The more overconfident he is tomorrow, the better." He's scheduled the investor meeting for 10 a.m. Tarek confirmed he's prepared. A whole presentation about his new direction for the company. Then we'll have everything filed by 9 a.m. Corporate registry opens at 8:30. I've already alerted them to expect priority filings. After we hang up, I finally text David back. Still processing. "Can we talk about this tomorrow after your meeting? Maybe dinner?" His response is almost comically predictable. "Fine. Gibson's at 7. Don't be difficult about this, Emma. It's better for both of us to move on quickly." I don't dignify that with a response. Instead, I head to our home office and begin systematically copying all remaining company documents from David's carelessly unprotected cloud storage, additional evidence of his disregard for proper security protocols, another violation of our operating agreement. As night falls, I find myself standing in front of our wedding photo, still prominently displayed in the living room. We look so happy, so full of promise. David's arm is around my waist, his smile confident and warm as he gazes into my eyes. I remember believing that smile, believing in the partnership we were creating, in business and in life. "You should have just been honest," I whisper to his image. "We could have ended this with dignity." But dignity was never David's strong suit. Behind the charismatic entrepreneur was always the insecure boy trying to prove himself to his wealthy father, who never thought he'd amount to much, to the business community that he desperately wanted to impress, and ultimately to himself. I carefully place the wedding photo in a drawer. Tomorrow, a new chapter begins. For me, for Nexus Solutions, and for David, though his will be far different than he's imagining as he sits in his luxury hotel room, probably celebrating what he thinks is his impending freedom with Rebecca. My phone rings one more time before bed. Jessica again. "Everything's in place," she says without preamble. Tarek has briefed the executive team discreetly. They're shocked but supportive. No one wants to see the company damaged by David's behavior. And Lisa? Legal is prepared to lock down all company systems at precisely 9:15 tomorrow morning. David's access will be restricted to basic email only, enough for him to dig his own grave if he reacts as we expect, but not enough to do any damage. "Good," I say, a strange calm settling over me. "I'll see you at the office at 8:30. That night, I sleep better than I have in months. There's something profoundly restful about finally taking action after so long in the shadows, gathering information, planning my response. No more pretending not to notice the late nights, the unexplained expenses, the subtle dismissiveness that had crept into David's treatment of me both at home and in business matters. Morning arrives with a clarity that feels almost symbolic. I dress carefully in a power suit that David once told me was too aggressive for someone with your role. Navy blue, impeccably tailored, paired with the pearl earrings my grandmother left me. Jewelry that represents genuine heritage, not purchased apologies like so many of David's gifts. At 8:15, I pull into the parking garage beneath the Nexus Solutions building in downtown Seattle. Our company has grown from a scrappy startup in our spare bedroom to occupying 3 floors of prime office space with over 100 employees. Employees whose jobs and livelihoods David was willing to risk with his reckless behavior. Jessica meets me in the lobby, already vibrating with focused energy. Registry office confirmed they're ready for our filing the moment they open. Tarek is upstairs with the executive team. They're concerned. "They should be," I reply, stepping into the elevator, but not about the company's future. That's more secure now than it was yesterday. Upstairs, the executive floor is eerily quiet. It's too early for most employees to have arrived, but our core leadership team is gathered in the main conference room, all except David, who will be making his grand entrance at 10 a.m. for the investor meeting. Tarek stands when I enter, followed by our CTO Michael, VP of Sales Priya, and Lisa from Legal. Their expressions range from grim determination to barely concealed shock at the situation unfolding. "Morning, everyone," I say, taking my place at the head of the table, David's usual spot. "I know this is unconventional, but I appreciate you coming in early." Michael speaks first, his usual technical bluntness intact. Tarek explained the situation. "Is it really as bad as he says?" I nod, opening my portfolio. "I'm afraid so. For the past several months, David has been systematically misusing company funds, sharing confidential information, and planning to restructure the company in violation of our operating agreement. Today, we're going to ensure that doesn't happen." I lay out the plan concisely. At 9 a.m., Jessica will file the paperwork transferring controlling interest of the company to me, based on the ethics violations. At 9:15, all of David's access will be restricted and security will be notified not to allow Rebecca into the building. At 9:30, we'll prepare for the investor meeting that David has scheduled. And David? Priya asks, her sales director instincts, clearly calculating the fallout. When does he find out? When he arrives for his big announcement, I respond. He'll be escorted to this conference room instead of the presentation room. I'll inform him privately before addressing the investors myself. At precisely 9 a.m., Jessica steps out to make the call to her associate waiting at the registry office. 5 minutes later, she returns with a nod. Filed and confirmed. Controlling interest has officially transferred. Emma is now the majority shareholder and acting CEO of Nexus Solutions. A weight lifts from my shoulders, not gone entirely, but transformed from the burden of secrets to the responsibility of leadership. I am no longer the betrayed wife working in the shadows. I am the CEO of a company I helped build, taking action to protect it. At 9:15, Lisa confirms that IT has implemented the access changes. David's credentials now have basic access only. His company email will work, but he can't access financial systems, product development servers, or client databases. At 9:30, we move to prepare for the investors. Tarek quickly updates the presentation slides to reflect the new reality of the company structure. The executive team, while still processing the shocking turn of events, rallies professionally around the immediate need to maintain stability. At 9:45, I receive a text from David. Heading into the meeting now. Don't wait up for dinner, might be celebrating with the team after the announcement. The sheer audacity almost makes me laugh. Even now, he has no idea what's coming. At 9:50, security calls up. Mr. Anderson has arrived with Ms. Stevens. Should we proceed as instructed? Yes, I confirm. Escort Mr. Anderson to the executive conference room when he reaches this floor. Ms. Stevens should be asked to wait in the lobby. At precisely 10 a.m., as investors are being settled into the presentation room by Priya, the conference room door opens. David walks in, his confident stride faltering slightly when he sees the entire executive team assembled. His confusion deepens when he spots me at the head of the table in my too aggressive suit. Emma? What are you doing here? The investor? Meeting is down the hall and we haven't discussed you taking part in… David, I interrupt calmly. Please have a seat. We need to talk before that meeting begins. He doesn't sit. Instead, he looks around at the faces of the executive team, searching for allies and finding none. What is this? Some kind of intervention? We have investors waiting. Yes, we do, I agree. And they're expecting to hear about the future direction of Nexus Solutions. That hasn't changed. What's changed is who will be delivering that message. Jessica steps forward, handing David a folder. These documents confirm the transfer of controlling interest in Nexus Solutions to Emma Anderson, effective as of 9:05. This morning, pursuant to Article 7 of your operating agreement regarding ethics violations. The color drains from David's face as he flips through the papers. This is ridiculous. We can and have, Lisa interjects. The violations are extensively documented. Misappropriation of company funds for personal use, breach of confidentiality clauses, attempted restructuring without board approval. Would you like me to continue? David's shock quickly morphs to anger as he turns to me. You planned this. All this time, you were just waiting. No, David, I say, quietly. All this time I was hoping I was wrong. I was hoping there was an explanation for the late nights, the secret meetings, the charges that didn't make sense. I was hoping my husband and business partner wasn't betraying both vows at once. His jaw tightens. This won't stand. Martin. Well, Martin has already reviewed the documentation, Jessica interrupts. As a matter of fact, he called me this morning to discuss representing you in this matter, but had to recuse himself due to the conflict of interest once he saw the evidence. Apparently, he has ethical standards after all. David's phone buzzes. Probably Rebecca wondering why she's been left in the lobby. He glances at it but doesn't answer. The investors are waiting, I remind him. You have two choices right now. You can join us in the meeting where I'll announce a restructuring due to internal policy violations by a founder, or you can leave the building quietly. Either way, your access has been restricted, your company credit cards deactivated, and your position as CEO terminated. For a moment, I see something flicker in his eyes. Perhaps recognition of the woman I've always been, the one he chose not to see. Then his expression hardens. This isn't over, Emma. Actually, David, it is. But if you'd prefer to challenge this legally, we're prepared. Though I should warn you, the documentation includes detailed records of exactly how company money was spent on hotels, dinners, and gifts for Rebecca. I'm not sure that's something you want made public. Might affect your reputation with future investors. He stands frozen for a moment longer, mental calculations almost visible behind his eyes. Then, without another word, he turns and walks out. Tarek breaks the heavy silence that follows. The investors are waiting. I take a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. Then let's not keep them waiting any longer. As we walk toward the presentation room, Jessica touches my arm. You did it. Happy birthday to you. I smile, feeling a strange mixture of regret and relief. The divorce papers are still on my kitchen counter. Tear them up, she advises. We'll draw up our own terms now. The investor meeting goes remarkably. Well, I explain that due to some internal restructuring, I'll be taking over as CEO effective immediately. I present our product roadmap, financial projections, and growth strategy. All material I'm intimately familiar with because I helped create it from my home office while David was the public face. The investors ask tough questions, naturally, concerned about sudden leadership changes, but seem reassured by the united front presented by the executive team and my clear command of the company's situation. By noon, I'm sitting in what is now my office, formerly David's corner suite with its view of Puget Sound. Tarek brings in lunch as the executive team continues damage control and strategic planning. Rebecca tried to access the building again. He informs me between bites of salad. Security explained her credentials have been suspended pending review. I nod, unsurprised. Has David tried to contact anyone? He sent a company-wide email claiming there had been a misunderstanding that would be resolved shortly. It flagged it immediately. The afternoon passes in a blur of meetings, decisions, and planning. By 5 p.m., I'm exhausted, but clear-headed. The initial shock has rippled through the company, but the transparency about ethics violations rather than personal issues has helped maintain professional focus. As I prepare to leave for the day, my phone buzzes with a text from David. We need to talk, privately. This has gone far enough. I consider ignoring it, but decide clarity is better than prolonged conflict. I reply, Gibson's, 7 p.m., as originally planned. Jessica immediately calls when I forward her the exchange. You're not seriously meeting him alone? It's a public restaurant, I remind her. And I'm not afraid of David. Never have been. At least let me sit at the bar, just in case. I agree, mostly to ease her concern. In truth, I know David. He's calculating, not violent. His weapons are manipulation and leverage, not force. At 7 p.m. sharp, I walk into Gibson's, the upscale steakhouse where David and I had celebrated countless business victories over the years. He's already there, nursing what appears to be his second whiskey, judging by the glass the server removes as I approach. Emma, he acknowledges, not standing as I take my seat. David. We study each other across the table, these new versions of ourselves emerging from the ashes of our marriage and partnership. He looks simultaneously smaller and sharper, like something distilled down to its most essential components. You've just destroyed 10 years of work, he begins without preamble. The company will never recover from this kind of leadership chaos. Interesting perspective, I reply evenly. Considering you were planning to announce a complete restructuring and sole leadership this morning. Seems like you weren't concerned about leadership chaos then. The server approaches, and I order a glass of Cabernet, buying time to steady my emotions. When we're alone again, David leans forward. What do you want, Emma? Money? Is that it? Because if this is some negotiation tactic for the divorce, this isn't about the divorce, David. This is about the company we built together. The one you were willing to risk for an affair and your ego. The one I've been quietly holding together while you took the spotlight. I built that company from nothing, he hisses, anger breaking through his controlled facade. We built it, I correct him. My marketing strategies, my relationship management, my financial oversight when you were too busy chasing the next big deal to notice the details. I just never demanded credit because I thought we were partners. His jaw works silently for a moment before he shifts tactics. What about us? 10 years, Emma? Does that mean nothing? It meant everything to me, I say quietly. Which is why I spent months hoping I was wrong about you and Rebecca. Hoping there was some explanation for the hotel charges, the late nights, the whispered phone calls. But there wasn't, was there? He has the grace to look away, if only briefly. When he meets my eyes again, there's calculation there. We can fix this, privately. Reverse the share transfer and we'll negotiate a fair settlement for the divorce. I almost laugh at the familiar pattern. David always believing he can negotiate his way out of consequences. The share transfer was legal and binding, based on documented ethics violations that had nothing to do with our marriage. The company needed protection from your actions. And that had to happen on the morning of my investor presentation? On the day after your birthday? His voice drips with accusation. Don't pretend this wasn't personal, Emma. I take a sip of my wine, considering my words carefully. The timing was your choice, David. You decided to hand me divorce papers. On my birthday. You scheduled the investor meeting where you planned to announce your new direction without consulting your co-founder. You created the urgency. We sit in tense silence for a long moment. Finally, David signals for the check without ordering food. This isn't over, he says for the second time today. Actually, it is, I reply calmly. The company lawyers will be contacting you about a separation agreement. You'll receive fair compensation for your shares, but your role at Nexus is finished. As for our marriage, yes, I'll be filing for divorce. But it'll be on terms that reflect reality, not the fantasy version where my contributions didn't matter. As he stands to leave, I add, "Oh, and David, happy birthday to me." That night, as I return to the house that now feels more mine than ever, I finally allow myself to feel the full weight of the day. There's sadness for what's been lost, but also tremendous relief and even pride in what I've accomplished. I pour myself another glass of wine and step out onto our back deck, gazing at the Seattle skyline glittering in the distance. 10 years ago, David and I stood on this same deck, dreaming about building something meaningful together. We did build something meaningful, just not the partnership I thought we were creating. My phone buzzes with a text from Jessica. "How are you holding up?" "Surprisingly okay," I reply honestly. Tomorrow's another day of damage control, but tonight, I'm just breathing. As I watch the city lights, I realize I'm experiencing something unexpected. Freedom. Not just from David's betrayal or the exhausting vigilance of the past months, but freedom to finally be seen for exactly who I am. Not a supportive wife, not a silent partner, but a capable leader who protected what she helped build. The divorce papers still sit on my kitchen counter. Tomorrow, I'll have Jessica draw up new ones that reflect reality. Tonight, I celebrate my birthday, not the one David tried to ruin, with his manila envelope, but the one where I reclaimed my power and my future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding precisely because someone underestimated you. David never saw me coming, never imagined the woman behind the supportive wife role he'd assigned me. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking I wouldn't fight for what was mine. And his third, believing that on my birthday I'd simply sign away my future. Instead, I signed his over to me. The morning after my birthday brings a strange new reality. I wake up in our bed, my bed now, and for the first moment, everything feels normal. Then the events of yesterday flood back. The divorce papers, the company takeover, the confrontation with David at Gibson's. I allow myself exactly 5 minutes to lie there, processing it all, before my alarm reminds me that I have a company to run. My phone is already filling with notifications. 3 missed calls from David, 2 voicemails, and a string of increasingly agitated text messages that evolve from demands to negotiations to veiled threats. I forward them all to Jessica without reading beyond the previews. Documentation, I text her. He's not taking this gracefully. The executive team meeting is scheduled for 8 a.m., earlier than our usual time, but necessary given the circumstances. I dress with deliberate care, a deep burgundy blouse under a light gray suit that I bought last year for a conference, but never wore because David said it made me look too corporate for my supportive role at networking events. The irony brings a small smile to my face as I apply my makeup with precision. As I drive to the office, Seattle's morning fog clings to the streets, shrouding the city in a dreamlike haze. It feels appropriate for this liminal space I'm navigating. No longer a wife, newly a CEO, somewhere between vindication and grief. The security guard nods with newfound respect as I enter the building. "Morning, Ms. Anderson." "Good morning, Jim. Any issues overnight?" I ask, knowing full well that David might have tried something. Mr. Anderson attempted to enter around midnight. I explained his access had been suspended pending review, as per protocol. Jim's professional demeanor doesn't quite hide his curiosity about the situation. "Thank you for following procedures," I say simply. No need to air our dirty laundry, even if most of the staff will have pieced things together by now. Upstairs, the executive floor is already humming with activity. Tarek meets me at the elevator, tablet in hand, ready to brief me as we walk to the conference room. The development team is nervous about the roadmap presentation scheduled for next week, he begins without preamble. David was heavily involved in setting the direction. I'm aware of every aspect of that roadmap, I assure him. In fact, most of it originated from strategy sessions I conducted with Michael's team, while David was handling the investor relations side. Tarek looks momentarily surprised, then nods with understanding. Of course. Also, 3 clients have called asking for clarification about the leadership transition. Priya has drafted a statement for your approval. The conference room falls. Silent as I enter. The entire executive team is present. Michael from product development, Priya from sales, Lisa from legal, Jennifer from HR, plus several senior directors. Their expressions range from concerned to curious to cautiously optimistic. "Good morning, everyone," I begin, taking my place at the head of the table. "I want to thank you all for your professionalism yesterday during what was clearly a challenging transition. Today, we need to focus on 3 priorities: stabilizing our team, reassuring our clients, and securing our intellectual property. For the next hour, we work through immediate concerns. Jennifer from HR reports that Rebecca has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, with full pay but no access to company systems. Lisa confirms that all company intellectual property has been secured and access logs are being reviewed for any unusual activity in recent weeks. David has already contacted several board members, Priya reports, checking her phone. They're requesting an emergency meeting this afternoon. I nod, having anticipated this. Schedule it for 3 p.m. I'll prepare a comprehensive briefing package that details both the leadership transition and the ethics violations that necessitated it. Lisa, I'll need your help compiling that. As the meeting concludes, Michael hangs back, clearly wanting to speak privately. Michael has been with Nexus since nearly the beginning, a brilliant developer who David recruited from Microsoft with promises of creative freedom and equity. Emma, I need to know, he says once we're alone. Is the company stable? My team is worried, and honestly, so am I. We have families, mortgages. I appreciate his directness. More stable now than it was yesterday, I tell him truthfully. David was making decisions that put us at risk, financially and legally. I know this transition feels abrupt and concerning, but I've been involved in every strategic decision this company has made for the past decade, whether David acknowledged it publicly or not. Michael studies my face, then nods slowly. How no? David always introduced you as his supportive wife who handled the soft stuff. But I remember that conference call last year when he was stuck in traffic, and you stepped in to explain our technical architecture to Westridge Capital. You knew our systems better than some of my senior engineers. I smile, remembering that call. David had actually been having lunch with Rebecca while I saved the meeting from my home office, diving deep into technical specifications that I'd studied meticulously to ensure I could support the company from any angle. The soft stuff matters, Michael, but yes, I know every aspect of this business. And I promise you your team's jobs are secure as long as I have anything to say about it. After he leaves, I take a moment alone in the conference room, staring out at the Seattle skyline now emerging from the morning fog. The Space Needle stands distinct against the clearing sky, a reminder of vision and engineering working in harmony, something I intend to restore to Nexus after David's self-serving. Leadership. My phone buzzes with a text from Jessica. David's lawyer called, not Martin. He's hired Preston Wells from Hargrove & Wells, heavy hitter. Preston Wells, known for aggressive corporate disputes and high-profile divorces. David is combining both battles then. Expected, I text back. Proceed as planned. By mid-morning, I've established a temporary office in our main conference room rather than moving into David's, now my, executive suite. It's a practical decision. I need to be accessible to the team during this transition, and the conference room has the technology and space for the revolving door of meetings this day will bring. Tarek brings me coffee, prepared exactly how I like it, which surprises me slightly until I remember the countless strategy sessions where I'd mentioned my preference for oat milk and one sugar, the financial review you requested, he says, sliding a folder across the table. I've highlighted the concerning transactions from the past 6 months. The pattern became significantly more pronounced after Rebecca was hired. I scan the documents, noting hotel charges in Portland, Vancouver, and even one weekend in Napa Valley, all disguised as client meetings that I now know never existed. More damning are the jewelry purchases, including a Tiffany bracelet bought 3 days before our anniversary. I never received a Tiffany bracelet. Have you isolated all company card transactions related to these false meetings? I ask. Tarek nods. Approximately $42,000 in misappropriated funds over the past 4 months alone. There may be more if we go back further. The amount doesn't shock me. I'd already traced much of this. But seeing it officially documented by our CFO makes it real in a different way. This isn't just marital infidelity. It's corporate theft. Add it to the board presentation, I instruct. And Tarek? Thank you for bringing this to my attention months ago. That couldn't have been easy. He looks uncomfortable with the gratitude. It was the right thing to do. David was putting the company at risk, and you deserve to know. As he leaves, my phone rings with a call from my mother. I consider letting it go to voicemail. There's so much to handle today. But something tells me this conversation needs to happen now. Emma? Darling, what's going on? Catherine Wilson just called me asking if everything's all right with you and David. She said there are rumors about some kind of trouble at the company. Catherine Wilson, the wife of one of my father's golf partners and Seattle's most efficient conductor of upper-middle-class gossip. Of course she'd be among the first to catch wind of yesterday's events. Mom, it's complicated, I begin, rubbing my temple where a headache is forming. David and I are separating. There have also been some changes at the company. I'm now acting as CEO. The silence that follows tells me my mother is processing this bombshell. When she speaks again, her voice is carefully controlled. I see. And were you planning to tell your father and me about any of this before Sunday dinner? It all happened very quickly, I explain, knowing it's not entirely true. The evidence gathering had been months in the making, but the actual transition happened in a matter of hours. David gave me divorce papers yesterday morning, on my birthday. Things escalated from there. Another pause. On your birthday? That's... She doesn't finish the thought, but I hear the shift in her tone. My mother has always adored David, frequently commenting on how lucky I was to have such a successful, charming husband. But even she has limits. There's more to it, Mom. Things I need to explain in person. Can we still do Sunday dinner? Of course, she says softly. Your father and I will always be here for you, Emma, whatever's happened. After we hang up, I allow myself exactly 1 minute to feel the emotion welling up. The complicated grief of losing not just my marriage, but the image of that marriage that everyone else believed in, my parents included. A knock at the conference room door interrupts my moment of vulnerability. It's Lisa, with a grave expression that immediately puts me on alert. David's lawyer just sent a cease and desist, she announces, placing a document on the table. They're demanding immediate reinstatement of his position and access, claiming the ethics violation clause was triggered without due process. I scan the legal document, noting Preston Wells's signature at the bottom. The language is aggressive, threatening, designed to intimidate. But they're bluffing. The operating agreement is clear, and the documentation of David's violations is extensive. Their strategy is intimidation, I observe. Classic Preston Wells. He's hoping we'll settle quickly to avoid a protracted legal battle. Lisa nods. That's my reading as well. But Emma, a legal fight with David could get ugly and expensive. He knows the company inside and out. Not as well as he thinks he does, I counter, thinking of all the aspects of Nexus that David delegated or ignored over the years. And not as well as I do. Prepare a measured response that cites the specific clauses of the operating agreement and references, but doesn't detail, the evidence we have. We're open to discussing a separation agreement, but his reinstatement is not on the table. As Lisa takes notes, Jennifer from HR appears at the door, her expression apologetic. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Rebecca Stevens is downstairs demanding to speak with you. Security has contained the situation, but she's becoming vocal. I sigh, weighing my options. Part of me wants nothing to do with the woman who participated in destroying my marriage, but the CEO in me recognizes that handling this poorly could create unnecessary drama. Have security escort her to the small conference room on the second floor. Tell her I'll give her exactly 10 minutes. And Jennifer, make sure there's a witness present, someone from HR or legal. I'll sit in, Lisa offers. This conversation should have legal oversight. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting across from Rebecca Stevens. She looks both defensive and shaken, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed at the edges. The designer purse on the table between us, the one I know David bought her after their weekend in Portland, suddenly looks tacky rather than luxurious. Ms. Stevens, I begin formally, I understand you have concerns about your employment status. This is ridiculous, she bursts out, her composure cracking. Putting me on leave for what? Having a relationship with David? That's not grounds. For your personal relationship with David is not why you're on administrative leave, I interrupt calmly. You're on leave pending an investigation into potential misuse of company resources, sharing of confidential information, and falsification of expense reports. She pales slightly but rallies quickly. David approved all my expenses. He's the CEO. Was the CEO, I correct her. And approval doesn't make misappropriation of company funds legal or ethical. But let's be clear, this meeting isn't to discuss the details of the investigation. You wanted to speak with me, so I'm giving you that courtesy. What did you want to say? Rebecca glances at Lisa, clearly uncomfortable with the witness. I thought we could talk privately, woman to woman. That would be inappropriate given the circumstances, I reply. So either say what you came to say, or we can end this meeting now. Something in my tone must convince her I'm serious, because her demeanor changes subtly. The indignation gives way to calculation. Look, I know how this looks. But David and I, it's not what you think. We have a real connection. He was going to leave anyway, even before me. He said your marriage had been over for years. I maintain a neutral expression despite the stabbing pain her words cause. It's a familiar script, the other woman convinced. She's special, different, that the failing marriage justified the affair rather than the other way around. Ms. Stevens, your romantic narrative is irrelevant to this company's operations and to your employment status. If that's all you wanted to discuss, we're done here. He's going to fight for the company, she blurts out as I stand to leave. He built Nexus from nothing. Everyone knows that. I pause, studying her with genuine curiosity. Is that what he told you? That he built this company alone? She nods, confidence returning. He's brilliant. A visionary. The investors know it. The board knows it. This power play won't work. Ms. Stevens, I say quietly, I would encourage you to verify the founding documents of this company before you hitch your wagon any further to David's star. You might be surprised to learn who actually owns what, and who really developed the proprietary algorithms that make our platform valuable. I leave her looking confused, Lisa following close behind. In the elevator, Lisa gives me an appraising look. That was impressively restrained. She's not my enemy, I say, though the words taste strange in my mouth. She's just another person, David manipulated with half-truths and charm. Back in my temporary command center, the day continues its relentless pace. I review client communications, approve Priya's messaging strategy for our largest accounts, and field concerned emails from team members seeking reassurance. By 2 p.m., I'm preparing for the emergency board meeting. Our board consists of 5 members, David and myself as co-founders, 2 investor representatives, and 1 independent director. I've worked with all of them over the years, but always in David's shadow, the supportive wife who occasionally contributed a woman's perspective when David deemed it valuable. Today, they'll see a very different Emma Anderson. Jessica arrives 30 minutes before the meeting, carrying a sleek briefcase that I know contains both corporate and divorce strategy documents. We've decided to keep these battles separate where possible, but they inevitably overlap. Preston Wells requested a settlement meeting for the divorce proceedings, she informs me as we review the board presentation. Suggested tomorrow morning. That's fast, I observe. David must be feeling the pressure. He's trying to regain control of the narrative, Jessica agrees. What's your response? I consider for a moment. Schedule it for Monday instead. Let him stew over the weekend. And let's hold it at your office, not his. At precisely 3 p.m., the board members begin arriving. Robert Chen and Alicia Morales represent our primary investors, while Douglas Wright serves as our independent director, a semi-retired tech executive who's known David since his early career days. Their expressions as they enter the conference room tell me they've heard various versions of what happened, none of them complete. Douglas in particular looks troubled, his usual jovial demeanor replaced with concern. Emma, he greets me with awkward formality. This is unexpected. I understand, Douglas. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Notably absent is David himself, despite being notified of the meeting. A power play, no doubt, trying to delegitimize the proceedings by his absence. At 3:10, with no sign of David, I begin the meeting. I appreciate you all making time on short notice. As you're aware, there has been a significant leadership change at Nexus Solutions. Effective yesterday morning, I have assumed the position of CEO and majority controlling interest following the triggering of Article 7 in our operating agreement regarding ethics violations by a founding member. Robert Chen, ever direct, cuts to the chase. Emma, while we all respect your contributions as co-founder, this is highly irregular. David has been the face and driving force of Nexus since inception. The public face? Yes, I acknowledge. But Nexus has always been a partnership, legally and practically. What's irregular isn't my leadership. It's the circumstances that necessitated this transition. I distribute copies of a carefully prepared document summarizing the ethics violations, financial discrepancies, and breaches of fiduciary duty that led to this point. As the board members review the material, their expressions shift from skepticism to concern. These are serious allegations, Alicia notes, her legal background evident in her precise terminology. And you have documentation for all of this? Complete documentation, I confirm. Additionally, our CFO, Tariq Rahman, has prepared a full financial analysis of the misappropriated funds, and our legal team has assessed the potential exposure these actions created for the company. Douglas looks up from the papers, his expression grave. Why weren't these concerns brought to the board earlier? It's a fair question and one I've prepared for. The investigation needed to be thorough and discreet to protect the company from both reputational damage and potential legal complications. Once the pattern was established and verified, I took immediate action in accordance with our operating agreement to safeguard the company's interests. The boardroom door opens abruptly, and David strides in with Preston Wells close behind him. He takes in the scene, me at the head of the table, the board reviewing evidence of his misconduct, and his jaw tightens visibly. Apologies for my tardiness, he says smoothly, though his eyes flash with anger. Traffic was unexpectedly heavy. I see you've started without me. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m., I reply calmly. We began at 3:10. David takes a seat opposite me, Preston remaining standing behind him like an ominous shadow. I assume my wife has been sharing her perspective on recent events. I'd like to offer a more accurate account. Robert Chen raises a hand. Before we get into competing narratives, I'd like clarification on one point. He turns to me. Emma, these financial discrepancies, they've been verified by an independent party? Yes, I confirm. Both our CFO and an external auditor have reviewed the transactions in question. Their reports are included in the packets before you. David leans forward, his charm offensive beginning. What Emma is calling discrepancies are standard business development expenses, perhaps approved through unconventional channels at times, but always in service to the company's growth. Business development at the Four Seasons in Napa Valley? Alicia asks pointedly, reading from the report. With no corresponding client meetings or sales outcomes? Business relationships take time to cultivate, David replies smoothly. Not. Every expense shows immediate return. I let the board pursue this line of questioning, watching as David's explanations grow increasingly convoluted. Preston Wells occasionally whispers in his ear, clearly trying to steer him away from potentially damaging admissions. Finally, Douglas addresses the elephant in the room. I think we need to discuss the operating agreement and the transfer of controlling interest. Preston, I assume you're contesting the legality of this action. Preston steps forward, every inch the high-powered attorney in his tailored suit. The transfer was executed without due process or board notification. We consider it invalid and are prepared to challenge it through appropriate legal channels. Lisa, who has been quietly observing from the side of the room, speaks up. The operating agreement is quite clear on this matter. Article 7 specifies that ethics violations by a founding member trigger automatic transfer of controlling interest to the other founder. Board notification is required after the fact, which is precisely why we're here today. Preston's expression hardens. Our position is that the alleged violations don't meet the threshold specified in the agreement. This is an overreaction to what is essentially a personal matter between David and Emma. A personal matter that involved the misappropriation of over $42,000 in company funds in just 4 months? I counter, keeping my voice steady. The threshold in Article 7 is clear. Any action that creates financial or reputational risk for the company. The documentation speaks for itself. The discussion continues for another hour, growing increasingly technical as the legalities are debated. Throughout, I maintain my composure, answering questions with precision and confidence. David, by contrast, grows visibly frustrated as his usual charm fails to sway the board in the face of hard evidence. Eventually, Robert Chen summarizes the board's position. While we take David's contributions to Nexus very seriously, the evidence of ethics violations is concerning. We're going to need time to review these materials thoroughly and consult with independent counsel before taking any position on the leadership transition. David stands abruptly. This is absurd. I built this company from the ground up. Emma was a supportive partner, yes, but everyone in this room knows who drove the vision and growth of Nexus. I remain seated, maintaining the high ground. The company records show a different story, David. Our contributions were different but equal, something I never disputed, even when you did. The difference is that I honored my fiduciary duty to the company, while you used it as a personal resource. After David and Preston storm out, the board members linger, clearly still processing the situation. Douglas approaches me privately. Emma, I've known David for 15 years. I never would have expected this from him. Neither did I admit, allowing some of my personal disappointment to show. But the evidence became impossible to ignore. For what it's worth, he says carefully, I always thought you were the steadier hand at Nexus. David had the flash, but you had the substance. His words affirm what I've known, but rarely heard acknowledged. As the board members leave, promising to reconvene after their review, I feel a strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. Jessica finds me staring out the conference room window at the late afternoon sun reflecting off the buildings of downtown Seattle. You did well, she says, squeezing my shoulder gently. The board was skeptical at first, but the evidence is compelling. It's not just about winning, Jess, I say quietly. It's about what comes next. I need to stabilize the company, reassure our team, maintain client relationships, all while David is doing everything possible to undermine me. One day at a time, she advises. Today, you secured your position. Tomorrow, we deal with the divorce strategy. Next week, we focus on the company's future. As evening falls, I finally return to my temporary office to gather my things. The day has been a marathon of confrontations, strategy sessions, and damage control. Tomorrow will bring more of the same, plus the added complexity of divorce, proceedings beginning to take shape. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. I open it to find a message from Rebecca. We need to talk, not as enemies. There are things you should know. I stare at the message, uncertain how to respond. What could David's mistress possibly have to tell me that I don't already know? Is this a trap? A way for David to gather information or evidence against me? After careful consideration, I type a reply. I'm not interested in drama or triangulation. If you have something legitimate to discuss regarding company matters, you can speak with HR. Her response comes quickly. It's not about the company, it's about David. Things he's said, plans he's made, things you need to be warned about. A chill runs through me, despite the controlled climate of the office. David has always been calculating, but rarely vindictive. Has that changed now that I've challenged him where it hurts most? His ego and his wallet? I decide to neither confirm nor deny interest. If you have concerns about illegal activities, you should document them properly through appropriate channels. No immediate response follows. I gather my belongings, my mind racing with new possibilities and potential threats. As I exit the building, the security guard gives me a respectful nod. Good night, Ms. Anderson. Car's waiting for you out front. Car? I hadn't ordered a car service. Yes, ma'am, executive car service. Mr. Rahman arranged it earlier, said you might be working late. Tarek's thoughtfulness surprises me, though perhaps it shouldn't. He's been a quiet ally throughout this process, reliable and ethical in ways I've come to deeply appreciate. The black sedan waits at the curb, driver standing attentively beside it. As I approach, he opens the rear door with professional courtesy. Home, Ms. Anderson? I pause, suddenly reluctant to return to the house filled with memories of a marriage that was apparently hollow, long before I discovered David's betrayal. The weight of the day, the confrontations, the strategic battles, the emotional undercurrents, suddenly feels overwhelming. Actually, I decide, could you take me to Alki Beach first? I'd like a few minutes of fresh air before heading home. Of course, ma'am. As the car pulls away from the curb, I catch a glimpse of another vehicle, David's distinctive Tesla, parked halfway down the block, watching, waiting. The sight sends another chill through me, this one sharper than before. The driver notices my sudden tension. Everything all right, Ms. Anderson? Yes, I lie, making a mental note to discuss security protocols with our team tomorrow. Everything's fine. As we drive toward the waterfront, Seattle's lights reflecting off Elliott Bay, I wonder what David's next move will be. The corporate battle, the divorce proceedings, the potential threats Rebecca alluded to, all pieces of a complex puzzle I'm still assembling. One thing is certain, the man I married, the partner I trusted, is now my adversary. And if today has taught me anything, it's that this battle is far from over. But neither am I the woman he thinks he married, the supportive wife who would crumble in the face of his betrayal. Today proved that. Tomorrow will prove it again. I take a deep breath of the salt-tinged air as we reach the beach, watching the gentle waves reflect the city lights. Whatever comes next, I'm ready for it. David may have spent years underestimating me, but his most serious mistake was doing so when it mattered most. Let him watch from the shadows. Let him plot and scheme. The woman he thought would simply sign divorce papers on her birthday has already shown him exactly how wrong he was to underestimate her. And that's just the beginning. Alki Beach offers a moment of peace as I watch the moonlight shimmer across Elliott Bay. The driver waits discreetly as I walk along the shore, my heels sinking slightly into the sand. The cold air clears my head, helping me process the day's events and prepare for what's coming. I know David well enough to anticipate his next moves. He won't accept defeat gracefully. His ego won't allow it. My phone vibrates again, another message from Rebecca. Against my better judgment, I open it. He's not who you think he is, not even who I thought he was. We should talk in person. Attached is a photo of a document I don't recognize, partially obscured but with Nexus letterhead visible. Curiosity wars with caution. Is this a trap laid by David, using Rebecca as bait? Or has his other victim finally seen through his manipulations? Either way, engaging directly with her seems unwise. I text Jessica instead. Rebecca reaching out with cryptic warnings about David, claims to have documents. Thoughts? Her response comes quickly. Could be legitimate, could be a setup. If you meet, neutral location, recorded, with me present. But consider, what could she tell you that would change your strategy now? It's a fair question. I've already secured control of the company. Divorce proceedings are underway. David's betrayal is thoroughly documented. What new information could possibly alter my course? I put my phone away and take one last look at the water before returning to the car. I'm ready to go home now, I tell the driver. As we pull away from the beach, I notice a dark sedan that seems to slide into traffic behind us. Could you take a slightly indirect route, please? I ask. The driver. I'd like to enjoy the city lights a bit longer. He nods, making an unexpected turn at the next intersection. The sedan follows. Not particularly subtle surveillance, which means it's meant to intimidate rather than actually gather information. Classic David, using obvious tactics to make me feel watched, hunted. Actually, I tell the driver, changing plans, could you take me to the Four Seasons instead? I think I'll stay in the city tonight. Of course, Ms. Anderson. A hotel seems safer than returning to the empty house, especially with David potentially having someone watch me. I call ahead to book a room, grateful that my own credit cards are entirely separate from the ones David might try to track or cancel. At the hotel, I check in quickly and head straight to my room on the 19th floor, with its panoramic view of the Seattle skyline and Elliott Bay. The luxury surroundings feel both comforting and strange. David and I stayed here many times in the early years of our marriage, celebrating company milestones with champagne and room service. I order a simple dinner and open my laptop, drafting emails to the executive team about tomorrow's priorities. Even with everything happening in my personal life, the company needs steady leadership. A text from Tarek arrives. Security footage. Shows David attempted to access the R&D floor after hours. Denied entry, but worth noting. So he's already trying to gather intellectual property or sabotage projects. I should have expected this, but the confirmation still sends a chill through me. I forward the information to Lisa in legal, adding, review all IP protection protocols. Assume worst-case scenarios. The night passes fitfully, my sleep interrupted by stress dreams where I'm trying to find important documents, while David watches, laughing. I wake at 5 a.m., giving up on further rest, and order coffee while reviewing my strategy for the day. By 7:30, I'm back at the office, having taken a circuitous route and switching cars once, perhaps excessive caution. But David's surveillance yesterday left me unsettled. Priya meets me at the elevator, already fully briefed on overnight developments. 2 major clients have requested calls with you personally, she informs me as we walk to my temporary office. Westech and Meridian Systems. Both seemed concerned but not panicked. Schedule them for this morning, I instruct. I want to reassure them directly before rumors spiral. Any word from the board? Robert Chen called. They've consulted outside counsel regarding the leadership transition. He wants to meet you for lunch. Robert, the most financially conservative of our board members, representing our largest venture capital investor. His support would effectively end any challenge to my leadership. Book us a table at Canlis, I decide. The upscale restaurant is public enough to be proper, private enough for sensitive conversation. At my desk, I find a hand-delivered envelope, thick cream paper with my name written in familiar handwriting. David's note is brief. Emma, this has gone far enough. Meet me at our spot, 7 p.m. We can resolve this like adults without destroying everything we've built. D. Our spot. The small wine bar in Pioneer Square where we celebrated our first successful funding round. Where he proposed, where we'd retreated during company crises to strategize away from prying eyes. A deliberately personal choice, designed to evoke our shared history and pull at my emotional threads. I set the note aside without responding. David is attempting to shift the battlefield from legal and corporate territory, where I have solid footing, to emotional ground, where he believes I'm vulnerable. Not happening. The morning unfolds in a whirlwind of calls and meetings. Westech and Meridian both express concern about the leadership change, but seem reassured by my detailed knowledge of their projects and clear vision for continued partnership. "You know, Emma," says James Wilson, Meridian's CEO and an old friend of David's, "I always thought you were the steady hand at Nexus. David had the flash, but every time we needed actual solutions. It was a partnership," I say diplomatically, though I'm secretly pleased by the acknowledgement. "And Nexus will continue to deliver the excellence you've come to expect." By noon, I'm preparing for my lunch with Robert. Jessica calls to strategize. Beforehand, "He'll be looking for reassurance on 3 fronts," she advises: financial stability, leadership continuity, and minimal drama. Focus on the business, not the personal betrayal. "I know Robert," I remind her. "He cares about ROI. Above all else, I'll make sure he understands that David's behavior threatened that very thing." Canlis offers breathtaking views of Lake Union, its mid-century modern elegance providing a fitting backdrop for high-stakes business discussions. Robert is already seated when I arrive, studying a financial report with such concentration that he doesn't notice me until I'm at the table. "Emma," he stands, offering a handshake rather than the usual cheek kiss, establishing a more formal relationship immediately. "Thank you for making time." "Of course, Robert. I imagine you have questions." He waits until we've ordered before addressing the elephant in the room. "The board has consulted with independent counsel regarding the leadership transition," he begins, carefully neutral. "They confirm that the operating agreement does indeed allow for the transfer of controlling interest under the circumstances you've documented." I nod, keeping my expression measured despite the surge of relief. "The agreement was designed specifically to protect the company from precisely this kind of situation." "That said," Robert continues, swirling his sparkling water thoughtfully, "David has been the public face of Nexus for years. His abrupt removal creates significant questions for investors, clients, and the market. The board needs to understand your plan for addressing those concerns." Here it is, the pivot point. Robert isn't questioning the legality of my actions, but rather my capacity to lead Nexus forward without David. This is the true test. "I've prepared a comprehensive transition plan," I tell him, producing a sleek folder from my briefcase. "You'll find 3 key components: leadership continuity, market positioning, and innovation roadmap." As Robert reviews the document, I outline my vision, not as David's replacement, but as the co-founder stepping fully into view after years of behind-the-scenes work. "Most of our clients already know me," I explain. "I've been handling key relationship management for years, just not always visibly. The executive team is solid and fully aligned with this direction. And frankly, Robert, the innovation roadmap has always been more my vision than David's." He looks up sharply at that last statement. "David has always presented himself as the product visionary." "David is excellent at presenting," I say carefully. "The actual product strategy development has been collaborative at best, and increasingly, my domain over the past 2 years as David focused more on external relationships. And the financial impact of this transition? Minimal, potentially positive. The documentation shows David's increasing financial impropriety was creating risk. Removing that risk factor while maintaining our strategic direction offers stability our investors should appreciate." Robert studies me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he says something that catches me completely off guard. "Tarek approached me 3 months ago with concerns about financial irregularities. I asked him to monitor the situation discreetly." He pauses, gauging my reaction. "He never mentioned you were involved." The revelation stuns me. Tarek had gone to the board before coming to me. I maintain my composure with effort. Tarek was properly fulfilling his fiduciary duty, I say carefully. As was I by investigating thoroughly before taking action. Robert nods slowly. I told him to document everything but take no action yet. I wanted to be certain before confronting David. Another pause. I didn't know about the personal aspects of the situation. Understanding dawns. Robert had been building his own case against David, concerned about the financial stewardship of their investment, when I executed my plan independently. No wonder he's not fighting the transition. He'd been contemplating something similar himself. The personal betrayal accelerated my timeline, I acknowledge, but the action was based on protecting the company, not personal retribution. Understood. Robert takes a sip of water, then asks, "What do you plan to do about David's equity position?" I've instructed our attorneys to prepare a fair separation agreement. He'll receive appropriate compensation for his contributions to date, but without operational control or future decision-making authority. He won't accept that easily. No, I agree. But his alternatives are limited. Fighting means more evidence of his misconduct becomes public record. Accepting means he walks away wealthy, if not in control. The remainder of lunch focuses on specific strategic initiatives and market positioning. By the time we part, I feel confident that the board, or at least its most influential member, is aligned with my leadership. Back at the office, I find Tarek waiting anxiously in my temporary office. "You met with Robert," he says, half statement, half question. "He mentioned your discussions from 3 months ago," I reply neutrally. Tarek looks genuinely distressed. "I should have told you I'd already approached him. I just wasn't sure how involved you were in the company's financial oversight, given how David always characterized your role." The explanation makes sense, even if it stings slightly. David worked very hard to create the impression that I was merely a supportive spouse rather than a full partner. "I understand that now," Tarek says earnestly. "After seeing how thoroughly you documented everything, how strategically you moved. It's clear you've always been more involved than David suggested." His candor is refreshing after years of having my contributions minimized. "Thank you, Tarek. And thank you for doing the right thing, even when it was difficult." As he leaves, my phone lights up with a text from Jessica. "Preston Wells requested an urgent settlement meeting tomorrow morning. Sounds desperate. Interesting? Timing, coming right after my lunch with Robert. I wonder if David has already heard that his board support is eroding. Schedule it for 3 p.m. instead," I reply. Let's not appear too eager. Another message arrives, from Rebecca again. "I have proof of what he's planning. Meeting in public didn't work last time. What about your lawyer's office?" This persistence is concerning. Either she genuinely has important information or she's setting an elaborate trap. The reference to last time suggests something I don't know about. I forward the message to Jessica with, "Getting stranger. Thoughts?" Jessica responds immediately. "Controlled environment might be worth the risk. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., my office? I'll have security present." Before I can reply, Lisa hurries into my office, her usually calm demeanor visibly rattled. "We have a problem," she announces without preamble. "David has filed an emergency injunction claiming intellectual property theft. He's alleging you downloaded proprietary company information without authorization. The accusation is as absurd as it is predictable. I'm the co-founder and current CEO. How exactly would that constitute theft? He's claiming the downloads occurred before the leadership transition, when you were accessing systems outside your authorized role." I think back to the files I'd copied from our shared cloud storage, all information I had legitimate access to as co-founder, but his lawyer could potentially muddy those waters. He's trying to create a counter-narrative, I realize aloud. If he can paint me as the one who violated trust first, it undermines the ethics claims against him. Lisa nods, grimly. "The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Preston Wells is moving fast." They're playing hardball, I muse. Schedule an emergency meeting with our litigation team, and Lisa, pull every record of my official roles and system access authorizations since the company's founding. David has conveniently forgotten how involved I've always been in every aspect of Nexus. As Lisa leaves to make arrangements, my phone buzzes with yet another message. Not from Rebecca or Jessica this time, but from Michael, our CTO. Need to speak privately, not office-related. Can I come up? Curious and slightly concerned, I text back an affirmative. Minutes later, Michael appears, looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable. Everything okay with the development team? I ask. The team is fine, he assures me. This is personal. David reached out to me directly this morning. My guard immediately rises. About what? He asked me to reason with you. Said you were acting emotionally, destroying the company out of personal vendetta. Michael shifts awkwardly. He implied that if I helped convince you to be reasonable, there would be significant equity appreciation in my future. In other words, David tried to bribe my CTO to undermine me. And what did you say to this generous offer? I told him I'd think about it, Michael says, surprising me. Before I can respond, he continues. I thought you should know exactly what he's doing. He's contacting the executive team individually, trying to create internal pressure against you. Relief replaces my momentary doubt. Thank you for telling me. Has he approached anyone else that you know of? Priya mentioned he called her yesterday. She shut him down immediately. I'm not sure about the others. This is a concerning development. David attempting to create internal division while simultaneously attacking through legal channels. A two-pronged strategy to destabilize my leadership before it's fully established. I appreciate your transparency, Michael. If he contacts you again, let me know. After he leaves, I sit back in my chair, reassessing the battlefield. David is escalating on multiple fronts. Legal challenges, attempting to turn my executive team against me, surveillance and emotional manipulation with his invitation to our spot. Meanwhile, Rebecca continues her cryptic outreach, hinting at some deeper plot I haven't yet uncovered. My phone rings, my mother's familiar ringtone. With everything happening, I'd almost forgotten about Sunday dinner tomorrow. Emma, darling, she begins without preamble. Are you all right? Catherine Wilson just told me David was seen having lunch with that young woman from your office. Rebecca something. She seemed to think I already knew what was happening. Of course. Catherine would be the one to spot them together. The Seattle social circles are smaller than they appear. Mom? It's complicated, I say, rubbing my temple where a headache is forming. David and I are separating. There's been betrayal on multiple levels. Oh, Emma. Her voice softens with genuine concern. I'm so sorry. Do you need us to come over? Your father and I can cancel our theater tickets tonight. No, Mom. I'm actually staying at a hotel at the moment. It's better this way. We still on for dinner tomorrow? Of course, but Emma, a hotel? Is it that bad? It's for the best right now, I assure her, not wanting to worry her with details about surveillance and security concerns. I'll explain everything tomorrow. After we hang up, I stare out at the Seattle skyline, watching clouds gather over the Olympic Mountains in the distance. A storm is coming, literally and figuratively. My assistant knocks gently at the door. The litigation team is assembled in conference room B, and Ms. Mitchell called. She confirmed 11 a.m. tomorrow for your meeting with Ms. Stevens. Thank you, Kate. Has security completed their sweep of the executive floor? Yes, they've installed the additional cameras you requested and updated all access protocols. No unauthorized personnel can reach this floor without escort. I gather my materials for the litigation meeting, mentally shifting gears from emotional processing to strategic planning. The immediate priority is countering David's legal maneuvers, then securing the executive team against his divisive efforts. The litigation strategy session runs long, our legal team constructing a robust defense against David's intellectual property claims, while preparing counterarguments about my legitimate access as co-founder. By the time we finish, evening has fallen over Seattle, lights twinkling on in office buildings across the city. I check my watch, 7:15 p.m. David will be waiting at our spot, growing increasingly frustrated as I fail to appear for his manipulative rendezvous. The thought brings a small, grim satisfaction. As I gather my things to leave, Priya appears in the doorway. "Michael told me he spoke with you about David's calls," she says without preamble. "You should know he's contacted Jennifer, in HR and 2 senior product managers as well. Always the same approach. Concern for the company's stability, implications that you're acting emotionally, suggestions that helping him regain control would be rewarded. Thank you for telling me. Has anyone seemed receptive?" She shakes her head. "Not that I can tell. Most of the team has seen enough of how things actually work around here to know who really keeps this place running." Her vote of confidence warms me unexpectedly. "Let me know if you hear anything else." "I will. And Emma? For what it's worth, I think Nexus is better off with you at the helm. Always has been." After Priya leaves, I stand at the window watching the city lights, considering my next moves carefully. Tomorrow brings multiple confrontations: the injunction hearing, the mysterious meeting with Rebecca, my settlement discussion with David's lawyer, and dinner with my parents where I'll have to explain the implosion of my marriage and professional life. The legal front feels most straightforward. Facts and documentation provide clear rebuttals to David's claims. The Rebecca situation remains a wild card. Her persistence suggests either genuine concern or an elaborate trap. The settlement discussion will be Preston Wells attempting to bully and intimidate, which I'm prepared for. It's the dinner with my parents that feels most daunting. They've always adored David, seeing only his charismatic, successful public persona. Explaining his betrayal means watching their hearts break for me, and perhaps confronting their own sense of having been deceived for years. My phone buzzes with a text from David himself. "You didn't show. This isn't like you, Emma. Whatever you think I've done, we've built too much together to destroy it like this. Call me." The message is perfectly calibrated to hit my emotional triggers, implying I'm behaving out of character, minimizing his actions as merely my perception, invoking our shared history, positioning himself as the reasonable party seeking resolution. Classic David manipulation. I don't respond. Instead, I text my security detail to meet me in the lobby. The Four Seasons will provide a safer haven than our home tonight, especially with David's frustration mounting. The night brings fitful sleep again. My dreams populated with fragments of confrontations and documents scattered like puzzle pieces I can't quite assemble. I wake at 5 a.m., giving up on further rest, and begin preparing for the day ahead. By 7:30, I'm meeting with our litigation team for final preparation before the injunction hearing. The strategy is clear. Establish my role as co-founder with full access rights to all company intellectual property, demonstrate the legitimacy of my leadership transition based on documented ethics violations, and counter-petition for sanctions against David for filing frivolous claims. The courthouse is a stately sandstone building in downtown Seattle. Its imposing facade a fitting backdrop for the drama about to unfold. As I walk up the steps with our legal team, I spot David and Preston Wells arriving simultaneously from the opposite direction. David looks haggard, the usual perfect polish of his appearance slightly diminished. His suit still expensive but slightly rumpled, his expression tense rather than confidently charming. Our eyes meet briefly across the courthouse steps. For a moment, I glimpse something unexpected in his gaze. Not anger or calculation, but a flash of genuine fear. For the first time, he's facing an opponent he can't charm or intimidate, in a battle where his usual weapons are useless. The realization seems to hit him physically, his stride faltering slightly before Preston murmurs something that straightens his posture. They disappear into the building ahead of us. "Ready?" Lisa asks beside me. I take a deep breath, centering myself for the confrontation ahead. Absolutely. The courtroom awaits, its solemn atmosphere a reminder that this is no longer a private betrayal, but a public reckoning. As I step through the heavy oak doors, I feel a strange calm settle over me, the clarity of purpose that comes from fighting not just for myself, but for everything I've helped build. David may have thought he was simply handing his inconvenient wife divorce papers on her birthday. Instead, he's about to learn exactly who he's been underestimating all these years, in court, in business, and in life. The courtroom is nearly empty as we enter. This emergency hearing isn't the kind that draws spectators. Judge Eleanor Simmons presides, her reputation for no-nonsense efficiency preceding her. I take my seat beside Lisa and our lead litigator, Marcus Whitfield, while David and Preston Wells position themselves at the opposite table. "All rise," the bailiff announces as Judge Simmons enters. Her keen eyes sweep the room, taking in both parties with clinical detachment. "We're here on the matter of Anderson versus Anderson regarding Nexus Solutions," she begins after we're seated. "I've reviewed the emergency filing. Mr. Wells, since your client has requested this injunction, please proceed." Preston rises smoothly, his tailored suit and confident demeanor the hallmarks of a lawyer who bills $200 an hour. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter of intellectual property protection. Our client, David Anderson, co-founder of Nexus Solutions, discovered that his wife, Emma Anderson, accessed and downloaded proprietary company information without proper authorization. This occurred prior to her questionable assumption of leadership, making it a clear violation of company protocol and potentially theft of intellectual property." Judge Simmons turns to our table. "Mr. Whitfield, your response?" Marcus stands, his presence less flashy than Preston's but equally authoritative. "Your Honor, Mr. Wells's characterization fundamentally misrepresents both Ms. Anderson's role at Nexus Solutions and her access rights. As documented in the company's founding articles, Ms. Anderson is not merely the wife, but an equal co-founder, with full access privileges to all company information. Furthermore, the leadership transition occurred in accordance with Article 7 of the operating agreement, following documented ethics violations by Mr. Anderson." Judge Simmons glances at the paperwork before her. "Mr. Wells, your injunction request seems to ignore Ms. Anderson's status as co-founder. Can you clarify?" Preston appears momentarily flustered, a rare sight, before recovering. "Your Honor, while Ms. Anderson is technically listed as co-founder, her operational role has been largely ceremonial. The access in question extended beyond her functional responsibilities within the company. I feel a surge of indignation at the word ceremonial, but keep my expression neutral." David shifts uncomfortably in his seat, perhaps recognizing the weakness of this argument. "I see," Judge Simmons says, her tone suggesting quite the opposite. "Mr. Whitfield, what evidence do you have regarding Ms. Anderson's actual involvement in the company? This is where our preparation proves its worth." Marcus gestures to Lisa, who approaches the bench with a thick binder. "Your Honor, we've compiled a comprehensive record of Ms. Anderson's contributions to Nexus Solutions since its inception. This includes patents filed under her name, client communications showing her leadership role, internal documents she authored defining the company's core products, and testimony from executive team members confirming her integral operational role." Judge Simmons takes a few minutes to review the materials, the courtroom silent except for the occasional turning of pages. I watch David as he whispers urgently to Preston, who shakes his head slightly. Clearly, this level of documentation has caught them off guard. "Mr. Wells," the judge finally says, looking up, "based on this documentation, Ms. Anderson appears to have been deeply involved in Nexus Solutions operations from the beginning. Your characterization of her role as ceremonial seems inconsistent with the evidence. Preston attempts to recover. Your Honor, regardless of her historical involvement, the specific materials accessed were outside the scope of her immediate responsibilities and were downloaded in preparation for a hostile takeover, not legitimate business purposes. That's patently false, Marcus counters immediately. The materials in question were directly relevant to Ms. Anderson's work as co-founder and pertained to financial irregularities she was investigating under her fiduciary duty to the company. Judge Simmons turns to me directly for the first time. Ms. Anderson, when you accessed these materials, what was your purpose? I stand, grateful for the opportunity to speak directly. Your Honor, as co-founder, I was investigating financial discrepancies brought to my attention by our CFO. The documents I accessed were necessary to verify potential ethics violations that could put the company at risk. Our operating agreement specifically requires founders to investigate such concerns. The judge turns to David. Mr. Anderson, is it correct that the leadership transition occurred due to alleged ethics violations on your part? David stands, summoning his considerable charm. Your Honor, what my wife calls ethics violations were standard business development expenses that she's mischaracterized for personal reasons. Our marriage was experiencing difficulties, and this corporate action is merely an extension of that personal conflict. It's a masterful deflection, painting me as the emotional wife using the company as a weapon in a marital dispute. I've seen him use this same technique in countless business negotiations, shifting attention from substantive issues to emotional subtext. Judge Simmons, however, appears unmoved. Mr. Whitfield, do you have documentation of these alleged ethics violations? Marcus nods, and Lisa again approaches the bench with another binder. Your Honor, these financial records show systematic misappropriation of company funds for personal expenses, falsified business justifications, and violations of the company's ethics code that Mr. Anderson himself signed. As the judge reviews this second set of documents, I notice David's confident facade beginning to crack. He whispers furiously to Preston, who appears increasingly concerned. After several minutes, Judge Simmons closes the binder and addresses the courtroom. Based on the documentation provided, I'm denying the emergency injunction. Ms. Anderson's access to company information was clearly within her rights as co-founder, and the leadership transition appears to have followed proper protocols under the operating agreement. Furthermore, she adds, fixing David with a stern look, I'm concerned about the validity of bringing this emergency action when the underlying facts are so clearly documented. Mr. Wells, I suggest you counsel your client more carefully about the standard for emergency relief. Preston tries one last tactic. Your Honor, we request a stay pending appeal. The company's operations will continue under Ms. Anderson's leadership while any appeal is considered. Judge Simmons interrupts. Firmly. The documentation shows she is eminently qualified to lead the company she co-founded. This hearing is adjourned. As the judge exits, I feel a complex wave of emotions: vindication, relief, and a strange sadness that it came to this. Across the room, David's expression hardens into something I've rarely seen directed at me: pure, undisguised hatred. That went well, Marcus comments quietly as we gather our materials. Better than expected, honestly. Judge Simmons is not easily impressed. What happens next? I ask, watching David and Preston engaged in intense discussion across the room. They'll likely appeal, but it's a long shot given how clearly she ruled. More importantly, this establishes a favorable precedent for the divorce proceedings and any further challenges to your leadership. As we exit the courtroom, David breaks away from Preston and intercepts me in the hallway. Emma, we need to talk, privately. Any communication can go through our lawyers, I respond evenly, continuing toward the exit. "This isn't just about us anymore," he hisses, keeping pace beside me. "You're putting the entire company at risk with this vendetta. The Westridge deal could fall apart. Is that what you want?" The mention of Westridge, our largest pending acquisition target, gives me pause. "What are you talking about, David?" "Keith Westridge called me last night. He's concerned about the leadership, instability. The due diligence team is recommending they pause the acquisition process. If true, this is concerning. The Westridge acquisition represents months of work and significant future growth for Nexus. But David's timing is suspicious. Bringing this up immediately after losing in court smacks of desperation. Keith hasn't mentioned any concerns to me, I reply carefully. "Because he doesn't know you, Emma," David says, reverting to his condescending tone. "I've been handling the relationship. He trusts me." "Then perhaps you should have considered that before misappropriating company funds and creating this situation," I counter, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath. "If you genuinely care about Nexus, you'll stop these desperate legal maneuvers and allow a clean transition." David's expression shifts, calculation replacing anger. "What if I propose a compromise? I withdraw all legal challenges, help smooth the Westridge transition, and in exchange, we restructure the leadership. Co-CEOs. We present a united front to the market while sorting out our personal matters privately. The offer is tempting on the surface. It would end the legal battles immediately and potentially save the Westridge deal. But I know David too well to believe he's suddenly interested in cooperation." "And how long before you undermine me from within?" I ask quietly. "How long before mysterious decisions get made without my knowledge?" "No, David. The days of you manipulating situations from behind the scenes are over." His mask slips, just for a moment, revealing the fury beneath. "You think you've won? But this is just beginning. You have no idea what's coming." Before I can respond, Lisa appears at my side. "Emma, we need to leave now for your next meeting." David's eyes narrow slightly. "What meeting?" "That's no longer your concern," I reply, turning away. "Good luck with your appeal, David. You'll need it." As we exit the courthouse, Lisa murmurs, "That was Rebecca's subtle code phrase. She's at Jessica's office early, seems agitated. Jessica thought we should head over immediately." The drive to Jessica's downtown office takes only 15 minutes, but my mind races the entire time. David's warning about what's coming, combined with Rebecca's mysterious urgency, creates a sense of foreboding. What am I missing? Jessica meets us in the lobby, her expression unusually grave. She's in my conference room with security present. "Emma, she's not what I expected." "Meaning?" "She seems genuinely frightened, and she brought documents, a lot of them." The conference room is at the end of a long hallway, its glass walls covered with privacy film for this meeting. When we enter, Rebecca stands abruptly, her usual polished appearance noticeably disheveled. Dark circles shadow her eyes, and her hands tremble slightly as she clutches an oversized portfolio. "You came," she says, sounding genuinely surprised. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here," I confirm, taking a seat across from her. "You said you have information about David's plans." She glances nervously at Jessica and Lisa. "Is it okay to speak freely?" "They're my attorneys and bound by confidentiality," I assure her. "Whatever you share stays in this room unless it involves illegal activity we're obligated to report." Rebecca takes a deep breath, then opens her portfolio. David isn't who either of us thought he was. The affair, it was real, but it was also strategic on his part. "Strategic how?" I ask, my suspicions still outweighing curiosity. "He needed someone with access to Helios Tech's internal systems." She pushes a document across the table, an employment verification letter from Helios Tech, Nexus's largest competitor. "I worked there before Nexus." David recruited me specifically because of that. The implication lands heavily. He was using you to gather competitive intelligence. She nods, shame coloring her cheeks. At first, I thought his questions were just normal interest in my previous work. Then he started asking for specific information, organizational structure, product roadmaps, client lists. He said it was standard competitive analysis, that everyone did it. That's potentially corporate espionage, Lisa interjects, her legal mind immediately identifying the liability. It gets worse, Rebecca continues, producing more documents. About a month ago, he started talking about a major restructuring at Nexus. He needed to clean house and consolidate control. And he asked me to help him gather evidence that could be used against certain executives. What executives? I ask, though I already suspect the answer. You, primarily. But also Tarek and Michael. Anyone he saw as potentially opposing his plans. She slides across several printed emails and what appear to be transcript fragments. He wanted me to help fabricate evidence of financial impropriety and client mismanagement. I scan the documents, recognizing David's email style and specific references to projects we'd worked on. Why are you showing me this now? Why not earlier? Rebecca's composure cracks slightly. Because until 2 days ago, I still believed he loved me, that once you were out of the picture, we would. She trails off, embarrassment evident. Then I found these on his laptop while he was in the shower. She produces a final set of documents, printouts of an email thread between David and someone named Alexander Dmitriev at a company called Volkov Industries. The subject line reads, Acquisition Strategy, Final Phase. As I read through the exchange, a cold feeling settles in my stomach. David has been secretly negotiating to sell Nexus to Volkov Industries, a Russian conglomerate known for aggressive acquisition tactics, immediately after pushing me out. The deal would involve stripping Nexus of its core intellectual property, laying off most of the staff, and absorbing the client relationships into Volkov's existing structure. He was planning to sell the company out from under everyone, I murmur, the pieces finally clicking into place. The Westridge acquisition was never the goal. It was a smokescreen while he arranged this deal. That's why he panicked when you took control, Rebecca confirms. The Volkov deal is scheduled to close next week. He's already accepted a position as their North American operations director with a substantial signing bonus. Lisa is already taking photos of every document with her secure phone. This violates at least a dozen provisions of the operating agreement, not to mention potential SEC violations for undisclosed negotiations. Why are you giving us this? Jessica asks Rebecca directly, her tone professionally skeptical. You must realize this implicates you as well. Rebecca looks down at her hands. Because what he's doing is wrong, and because he's been lying to everyone, including me. Yesterday, after your confrontation at the restaurant, he told me it was all temporary, that he had a plan to regain control and take care of Emma permanently. What exactly did he mean by that? I ask, a chill running through me. He was drunk, angry. He said sometimes problems require permanent solutions and that his friends at Volkov understand how business is really done. It scared me. That's not who I thought he was. The implication hangs in the air, too disturbing to voice explicitly. David has always been ruthless in business, but this suggests something far darker. We need to contact the FBI, Lisa says quietly. Volkov Industries has been under investigation for connections to organized crime. If David is working with them, I'll lose everything, Rebecca interjects, panic edging her voice. My career, possibly worse if these people are as dangerous as you're suggesting. Jessica adopts her most reassuring tone. We can discuss immunity arrangements if you're willing to cooperate fully, but we need to move quickly. I'm still processing the magnitude of the betrayal. David wasn't just having an affair or embezzling funds. He was actively planning to destroy the company we built, eliminating anyone who stood in his way, including me. The divorce papers on my birthday weren't just cruel timing. They were part of a calculated strategy to destabilize me emotionally before his final move. The settlement meeting with Preston Wells this afternoon, I realize aloud. It's another distraction. They're trying to keep us occupied while they implement whatever contingency plan they've developed. We should cancel, Lisa suggests. No, I counter, an idea forming. We go, but we change our strategy. Jessica, contact your friend at the FBI immediately. Lisa, we need to secure all of Nexus's systems and intellectual property right now. And I need to reach Tarek. As Jessica steps out to make calls and Lisa begins rapid-fire texting, I turn back to Rebecca. Is there anything else I should know? Anything at all about David's plans or connections? She hesitates, then reaches into her purse and extracts a small USB drive. He doesn't know I copied these. It's all the correspondence with Volkov, including some recorded calls. I was protecting myself, just in case. I accept the drive, understanding the fear that motivated her. Thank you for coming forward. It couldn't have been easy. I'm sorry, she says quietly. About everything. I really didn't know who he really was, or who you really were for that matter. The sincerity in her voice surprises me. Despite everything, I find I believe her, another victim of David's manipulation, if in a very different way than me. What happens now? She asks as Jessica returns to the room. Now we move quickly, Jessica answers. FBI agents will meet us here in 30 minutes. They've been building a case against Volkov for months and are very interested in this connection. In the meantime, we need statements from both of you documenting everything. The next 2 hours pass in a blur of activity. Rebecca provides a detailed statement about her involvement with David, his connection to Volkov, and the plans she uncovered. FBI agents arrive, professional and focused, treating the information with appropriate seriousness. I contact Tarek, instructing him to implement our most stringent security protocols and to gather the executive team for an emergency briefing. By the time we prepare to leave for the settlement meeting with Preston Wells, a plan has coalesced. The FBI will monitor, but not intervene yet, gathering evidence for a larger case against Volkov. Our priority is securing Nexus while maneuvering David into revealing the full extent of his conspiracy. Are you sure about this approach? Jessica asks as we ride the elevator down to her building's lobby. It's risky. So is doing nothing. While David and Volkov implement whatever contingency plan they've developed, I counter. We need to control the narrative and the timing. The FBI agent seemed particularly concerned about the permanent solution comment, Lisa notes. They're taking the potential threat seriously. The thought sends another chill through me, but I push it aside. All the more reason to stay ahead of this, if David is desperate enough to consider. Extreme measures, our best protection, is to keep him off balance. Preston Wells's office occupies the top floor of one of Seattle's premier high-rises, the kind of space designed to intimidate visitors with its panoramic views and ostentatious art collection. His assistant leads us to a conference room where Preston waits alone. No David, as expected. Ladies, Preston greets us with professional courtesy that doesn't reach his eyes. I appreciate you making time on short notice. Where's David? Jessica asks directly. My client had an unavoidable conflict. He's authorized me to discuss settlement terms on his behalf. Preston slides a document across the table. We believe this represents a fair resolution to both the corporate and personal matters. I scan the proposal, noting the audacity of the terms. David would retain 40% ownership of Nexus, receive a $10 million severance package, and I would be required to publicly attribute the leadership transition to mutual strategic differences. In exchange, he would drop all legal challenges and support a collaborative narrative about our separation. This isn't a starting point for negotiation, I observe, sliding the document back. It's a fantasy. Preston's expression hardens slightly. Ms. Anderson, given this morning's ruling, I understand you might feel empowered to take a hard line. But consider the long-term implications. A protracted legal battle benefits neither of you, and certainly not Nexus Solutions. On that we agree, I reply. Which is why I've brought an alternative proposal. I nod to Jessica, who produces our counteroffer. Preston reviews our document, his practiced neutral expression slipping as he reads the terms. David would divest all ownership in Nexus in exchange for a one-time payment significantly below market value, sign comprehensive non-disclosure and non-disparagement agreements, and waive all future claims against the company or its executives. This isn't serious, he scoffs, putting the document down. Completely serious, I counter, and generous, considering the circumstances. What circumstances would those be? Preston asks, wariness creeping into his tone. I lean forward slightly. Preston, I respect you as an attorney, so I'm going to be direct. My counteroffer expires at 5 p.m. today. After that, certain information regarding David's undisclosed negotiations with Volkov Industries will be provided to relevant authorities, along with evidence of potential corporate espionage involving Helios Tech. The color drains from Preston's face, though he maintains admirable composure. I'm not familiar with the matters you're referencing. I believe you, I say sincerely. David hasn't been forthcoming with you, which puts you in a difficult position professionally. I suggest you discuss these issues with him immediately and encourage him to accept our offer before the situation escalates beyond anyone's control. Preston studies me carefully, clearly reassessing the dynamic. I'll need to consult with my client. Of course, Jessica interjects smoothly. As Emma mentioned, our offer expires at 5 p.m. After that, events will take their own course. As we stand to leave, Preston makes one last attempt. Whatever you think you know about David's business dealings, pursuing this aggressive approach could damage Nexus significantly. Markets hate uncertainty. They hate fraud and corruption more, I counter. And Preston? If I were you, I'd consider very carefully whether continued representation of David serves your firm's best interests. The FBI takes a dim view of attorneys who become entangled in their clients' criminal activities, even unwittingly. The mention of the FBI visibly unsettles him. Good. Let him wonder exactly how much we know and who else might be investigating. Outside, waiting for our car, Jessica gives me an appraising look. That was effective. Borderline intimidating, actually. I learned from the best, I reply, thinking of all the times I'd watched David deploy similar tactics in negotiations. The difference is, my leverage isn't a bluff. My phone buzzes with a message from Tarek. Security protocols implemented, executive team assembled. Something else you should know. David attempted remote access to the development servers 20 minutes ago, blocked by new protocols. So he's already trying to extract what he can, likely for Volkov. The timing confirms our suspicions about the settlement meeting being a distraction. We need to get back to Nexus immediately, I tell Jessica, and Lisa. David's making his move. The drive back to the office takes agonizing minutes in midday traffic. I use the time to call Michael, warning him to be especially vigilant about the core product architecture and security systems. He confirms that all technical team leads have been briefed about potential breach attempts without revealing the specific threat. As we pull up to the Nexus building, I spot a familiar Tesla in the visitor parking area, David's car. He's here, despite supposedly having an unavoidable conflict that prevented him from attending the settlement meeting. Alert security that David is on site, I instruct Lisa as we hurry into the lobby. He shouldn't have access, but we need to locate him immediately. The security desk confirms that David hasn't come through the main entrance, which means he either used a side door or someone let him in. Neither scenario is reassuring. We take the executive elevator directly to our floor, the doors opening to reveal a scene of unusual activity. Several security personnel are stationed throughout the area, and the executive team is visible through the glass walls of the main conference room, their expressions tense. Priya intercepts us as we step off the elevator. "Emma, thank God you're back." David somehow got onto the R&D floor about 30 minutes ago. Security is searching for him now, but he's not in any of the obvious places. "How did he get access?" Lisa demands. "We think through Jack Reynolds' badge," Priya explains, referring to one of our senior engineers. Jack reported his badge missing after lunch. The system logs show his credentials were used to access the R&D floor, but Jack was in a meeting with Michael at the time. The realization hits me like a physical blow. He's after the core architecture files, the quantum project. It's our most valuable intellectual property, the next generation platform that would be the crown jewel for Volkov. Michael's already locked down the main repository, Priya assures me. But if David had inside help, the implication hangs in the air. Despite our precautions, David could have cultivated allies within the development team who might help him extract what he needs. "Where's Tarek?" I ask, already moving toward the conference room. Still trying to trace the system access patterns to locate David. As we enter the conference room, the executive team falls silent, all eyes turning to me. I see concern, confusion, and in some faces, fear. They don't yet know the full scope of David's betrayal or the potential threat from Volkov. "I know this situation is unusual and concerning," I begin, deciding transparency is crucial. David Anderson has been attempting to access sensitive company information without authorization. We have reason to believe he intends to transfer proprietary technology to a competitor. Security is currently locating him, but in the meantime, we need to implement emergency protocols. Michael steps forward, tablet in hand. "We've already locked down the core repositories and initiated the disaster recovery sequence that isolates our primary systems. If he's after the quantum architecture, he won't find it in the usual locations." "Good," I acknowledge. "But David helped design some of those security systems. We need to assume he knows workarounds." As the team discusses potential vulnerabilities and countermeasures, I notice Jennifer from HR shifting uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze repeatedly dropping to her phone. A suspicion forms. "Jennifer," I say directly, interrupting the ongoing discussion. "Is there something you need to share?" All eyes turn to her. She flushes, clearly uncomfortable. David texted me about 20 minutes ago. He said he needed to retrieve personal items from his office and asked if security would stop him. I told him yes, they would. "Did you tell him anything else?" Tarek asks sharply. Jennifer hesitates. "He asked if we'd change the security protocols for the executive floor. I mentioned we had additional personnel today, but I didn't give specifics. I didn't think it would—" "A commotion outside," interrupts her explanation. Through the glass walls, we see security personnel rushing toward the far end of the floor, the server room that houses our physical backups and auxiliary systems. "That's it," Michael realizes aloud. He's not after the current repositories. He's going for the offline backups from last month. They would still have the foundation architecture before we implemented the latest security patches. We rush toward the server room, security already converging from multiple directions. As we round the corner of the main hallway, I spot David emerging from the server room, a small hard drive clutched in his hand. His expression shifts from triumph to shock as he sees our approaching group. For a moment, we lock eyes across the distance. Executive team, security personnel, and lawyers on one side. David, alone but still defiant, on the other. In his face, I see the man I married transformed by greed and desperation into someone unrecognizable. "It's over, David," I call out, my voice carrying in the sudden silence of the hallway. Security has you on camera accessing restricted areas without authorization. The FBI is already investigating your dealings with Volkov. Whatever you think, you've accomplished here today only makes your situation worse. A flicker of genuine fear crosses his face at the mention of the FBI, quickly replaced by calculation. You're bluffing. There's no investigation. Rebecca provided quite detailed information, I reply calmly, including recordings of your conversations with Alexander Dmitriev. The color drains from his face. His grip on the hard drive tightens as he glances around, clearly assessing escape routes. Don't make this worse, I advise, taking a step forward. Hand over the drive, and we can still resolve this with some measure of dignity. For a moment, I think he might comply. Then his expression hardens into something cold and unfamiliar. You have no idea what you've done, Emma. No idea who you're dealing with. Volkov doesn't accept failure, and neither do I. With surprising speed, he turns and sprints toward the emergency stairwell at the end of the hallway. Security personnel immediately give chase, but David has the advantage of desperation and a head start. As alarms begin to sound, triggered by the emergency exit, I turn to the executive team. Lock down everything. Assume any data he might have accessed is compromised. Michael, initiate the vulnerability protocols we discussed last month. The next hour passes in organized chaos as security searches the building, police are called, and our technical team works to assess and contain potential damage. David successfully fled the building before security could intercept him, disappearing into midday downtown traffic. The hard drive he stole, according to Michael's preliminary assessment, contains partial backups of our system architecture, valuable but incomplete without the latest security implementations and access keys that remain safely protected. As the immediate crisis response stabilizes, I find myself in my office, staring out at the Seattle skyline now draped in afternoon shadows. My phone buzzes with an incoming call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer. Emma. David's voice, tense but controlled. This isn't how I wanted things to play out. Where are you? I ask, signaling to Lisa, who has just entered my office. She immediately begins recording the call. Somewhere safe for now. A pause. You've made a serious mistake involving the FBI. Volkov isn't a typical competitor. These are dangerous people with significant resources. You brought them into our company, David. You were willing to sell out everyone who trusted you, including me. It was business, he says, as if that explains everything. A strategic opportunity that would have benefited everyone in the long run. By stripping our company for parts and laying off our entire team, that was in the Volkov proposal. I've seen the documents. Another pause, longer this time. Rebecca, he finally says, understanding dawning. She gave you everything. She did the right thing, David. Something you might want to consider while you still can. A bitter laugh comes through the line. The right thing? I built Nexus from nothing. Everything we have came from my vision, my connections, my risk-taking. You were along for the ride, contributing your little improvements while I handled the real challenges. And now you lecture me about right? His revisionist history would be almost comical if it weren't so pathetic. Is that the story you've been telling yourself? That I was just the supportive wife making little improvements while you did the real work? It's the truth, he insists. And deep down, you know it. What I know, I counter, is that while you were taking credit and building your personal brand, I was developing the core algorithms that make our platform valuable. While you were having affairs and embezzling funds, I was maintaining client relationships and improving our products. The truth, David, is that you needed me far more than I ever needed you. Silence stretches over the line, broken finally by his cold response. We'll see about that. This isn't over, Emma. Actually, It is. The FBI already has your Volkov connection. Preston Wells will likely distance himself once he understands the full situation. Your access to Nexus is permanently revoked, and the partial data you stole is being rendered obsolete as we speak. Whatever leverage you thought you had is gone. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he repeats, an edge of desperation creeping into his voice. Volkov doesn't just walk away when deals go bad. Then perhaps you should worry more about them than about me, I suggest. Goodbye, David. I end the call, the weight of his threats settling uncomfortably despite my outward confidence. Lisa looks up from her recording device, concern evident in her expression. We should take those threats seriously, she advises, especially given what Rebecca shared about permanent solutions. I assure her. But right now, our priority is securing Nexus and its people. Contact our FBI liaison and forward this recording. Then let's gather the executive team. They deserve to know what's really happening. As Lisa leaves to make arrangements, I take a moment alone with the reality of where things stand. In less than 3 days, my marriage has imploded. I've assumed control of our company, uncovered a plot to sell it to Russian interests, and now face potential threats from both David and his dangerous new associates. Yet beneath the stress and uncertainty, I feel something unexpected: clarity. For years, I've operated in David's shadow, my contributions minimized, my capabilities underestimated. That ends now. Whatever comes next, legal battles, corporate challenges, personal threats, I'll face it directly, without pretense or compromise. The sun begins to set over Seattle, painting the sky in deepening shades of orange and purple. Somewhere out there, David is realizing that his carefully constructed world has collapsed entirely. The company he thought he controlled is beyond his reach. The wife he thought would quietly accept divorce papers on her birthday has instead taken everything he valued. My phone buzzes with a reminder: dinner with my parents in 2 hours. Amid corporate espionage and FBI investigations, I still need to explain to my mother and father how their beloved son-in-law turned out to be someone entirely different than they believed. One crisis at a time, I remind myself. The executive, team first, then my parents. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but for now, knowing David's full plan changes everything. Information is power, and for once, I have more of it than he does. The thought brings a grim satisfaction as I prepare to face whatever comes next. David wanted me to sign divorce papers on my birthday. Instead, I took his company, exposed his conspiracy, and upended his carefully laid plans. His most expensive mistake wasn't the affair or the embezzlement. It was underestimating the woman he married, a mistake he'll have plenty of time to contemplate in the days ahead. 1 month after the day David handed me divorce papers on my birthday, I stand at the window of what is now officially my office at Nexus Solutions. The Seattle skyline stretches before me, rain washing the city clean as a new season begins. So much has changed in these few weeks that sometimes it feels like I'm living someone else's life. The FBI investigation into Volkov Industries moved swiftly once they had the evidence Rebecca provided. David was apprehended attempting to board a private flight to Vancouver 3 days after fleeing our offices. The partial data he stole proved worthless without the security keys, exactly as Michael had assured me. Preston Wells withdrew as David's attorney within hours of our meeting, after verifying the Volkov connection independently. His firm apparently has strict policies about not representing clients involved in potential international criminal conspiracies. David is now represented by a public defender, a dramatic fall for someone who once insisted on only the most expensive legal counsel. The executive team rallied remarkably once they understood the full situation. Tarek's financial acumen proved invaluable in untangling the web of David's financial manipulations, while Michael led a comprehensive security overhaul to protect our intellectual property. Priya skillfully managed client relationships through the transition, turning what could have been a destabilizing crisis into a testament to our company's resilience. Most surprisingly, Rebecca became a key witness for the prosecution, providing detailed testimony about David's corporate espionage activities and the Volkov connection. In exchange for her cooperation, she received immunity from prosecution. Last I heard, she's relocated to Portland and started over with a marketing position at a small tech firm, about as far from the drama of recent events as possible. The divorce proceedings moved forward without David's resistance. His legal troubles far outweighed any desire to fight over marital assets. The settlement was finalized last week, officially ending our 10-year marriage with a simple signature. Ironically, much like the one he had expected from me that birthday morning. My parents took the news better than I anticipated. After the initial shock wore off, my father admitted he'd always found David somewhat superficial, though he'd kept those thoughts to himself out of respect for my choice. My mother, ever practical, simply said, "Well, darling, at least you found out before wasting any more years on him." A knock at my office door interrupts my reflection. It's Priya, tablet in hand, ready for our weekly client review. The West Ridge. "Acquisition is back on track," she announces as she takes a seat across from me. "Keith reached out personally this morning. He says their due diligence team is impressed with our handling of the leadership transition and enhanced security protocols." "That's excellent news," I respond, genuinely pleased. Despite everything, the company has not just survived but strengthened its position. "What about the Parker account? Any movement there?" As Priya updates me on our client portfolio, I'm struck by how natural this feels now. Leading without shadow, making decisions without second-guessing, being recognized for my expertise rather than as David's wife. Later that afternoon, I meet with Jessica to discuss the final legal loose ends. The criminal case against David continues to build, with additional charges related to corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy being added as the investigation deepens. The Volkov connection has opened a much larger investigation, Jessica explains. Federal prosecutors are treating this as part of a pattern of Russian attempts to acquire American technology through quasi-legal means. David's cooperation could potentially reduce his sentence, but he's still looking at significant federal time. Has he said anything about his motivations? I ask, still struggling to reconcile the man I married with the criminal he became. According to the prosecution, he claims he was under financial pressure we didn't know about. Gambling debts, risky investments gone wrong. The Volkov deal offered a way out plus a lucrative position afterward. I shake my head, thinking of all the warnings I missed, the red flags I rationalized away. And to think he nearly succeeded. But he didn't, Jessica reminds me gently. Because you were smarter, more prepared, and braver than he expected. That evening, as I finally return to our house, my house now, I pause in the entryway, taking in the space that once represented our shared life. I've decided to sell it. Too many memories linger in these rooms, both good and painful. A fresh start seems appropriate for this new chapter. As I pack away photographs and mementos, I find our wedding album tucked away on a bookshelf. The smiling couple in those pictures seems like strangers now, particularly the man with his confident smile and arm wrapped possessively around my waist. I close the album without nostalgia, placing it in a box marked for storage. My phone buzzes with a text from Tarek. Quarterly numbers finalized. Best performance in company history. Celebration dinner tomorrow? I smile, typing back an affirmative. There is much to celebrate, despite the painful journey to this point. Nexus is thriving under new leadership. Our team is more united than ever. And I am finally recognized for who I've always been, not just a supportive wife, but a capable leader and innovator in my own right. As I continue packing, I come across the manila envelope that held the divorce papers David presented on my birthday. Inside, I find a birthday card he never gave me, probably intended as a hollow gesture to soften the blow. The message inside reads simply, "Sometimes endings are necessary for new beginnings. D." For once, I find myself agreeing with him, though not in the way he intended. He never imagined that the ending he initiated would result in this particular new beginning, one where I reclaimed not just our company, but my own power. I tossed the card into the recycling bin without regret. David's miscalculation was complete and devastating to him. He thought he married a woman who would crumble when faced with betrayal. Instead, he married a woman who had been waiting for the opportunity to rise. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.